Alright, buckle up, because you're about to discover some of the most baffling and frankly, downright bizarre ways your own body can decide to throw you for a loop. Ever get that creeping suspicion that your personal biology is operating on some secret, unwritten code, occasionally unleashing pranks that leave you utterly bewildered? We're talking about those moments when something so outlandishly strange happens within your own skin that it makes you question the very fabric of what you thought was normal. You are definitely not alone in this. The human body, for all its incredible design and miraculous complexity, sometimes seems to have a few smudged blueprints, a couple of crossed wires, leading to quirks and glitches that have even the most seasoned medical professionals scratching their heads and admitting, "Well, that's a weird one." Prepare to have your perception of your own physiology wonderfully warped, because we're diving deep into some of the strangest, most inexplicable phenomena of just being human. You might even find yourself nodding along, recognizing a few of these oddities from your own experiences. So if you're truly ready to peek behind the curtain of your own amazing and sometimes mystifying internal world and discover the things that make even scientists occasionally just shrug their shoulders in fascinated confusion, let's get right into it. Number 6. Imagine this perfectly ordinary scene. You're just sitting there, perhaps engrossed in a good book, scrolling through your phone, or maybe just lost in thought, completely minding your own business. Then, with absolutely no preamble, bam! A ferociously sharp, stabbing pain erupts in your chest. It's an intense, piercing sensation, feeling as though someone has just viciously and unexpectedly jabbed you with a needle-heated cherry red. This agonizing discomfort usually decides to make its presence known on the left side of your chest, homing in on one very specific, highly localized spot. Your immediate instinctual reaction is to freeze solid, every muscle in your body tensing up. You might instinctively try to take a deep breath, hoping that filling your lungs will somehow ease the sudden torment. But then, an even crueler twist of fate occurs. The pain actually intensifies, making you catch your breath in a short, sharp gasp. In that terrifying, heart-stopping moment, your mind, quite understandably, races to the most catastrophic and terrifying conclusion it can conjure. Oh no, am I having a heart attack? Panic begins to bubble up, cold and insistent. Then, just as suddenly and as mysteriously as it assaulted you, the pain vanishes completely. It's gone, as if it were nothing more than a fleeting, cruel illusion, leaving you utterly bewildered, a little shaky, but physically unscathed. If this sounds familiar, congratulations. You've just had an encounter with what's known as precordial catch syndrome. This sneaky little chest ninja, as it's sometimes whimsically called, is surprisingly common, particularly popping up in teenagers and young adults, though it really can strike out of the blue at any age. And here's the real kicker, the part that makes it so utterly baffling and, in a way, frustrating. Despite feeling for all the world like your heart is about to explode or that something truly dire is unfolding within your ribcage, precordial catch syndrome is, thankfully, completely and utterly harmless. Doctors have mulled over a few theories about what might be causing this alarming phenomenon. Some medical minds suspect it could be a nerve in the delicate lining of your lung getting momentarily and unluckily pinched, while other hypotheses suggest it might be a brief involuntary muscle spasm occurring somewhere in your chest wall. But here's the truly frustrating glitch in our understanding of this system. Nobody knows for absolute, rock-solid certain what actually causes it. There are plenty of educated guesses and plausible theories floating around, but no definitive, universally accepted answer has yet been pinned down. And because it's ultimately benign and resolves itself entirely on its own without any need for intervention, there's no specific treatment for it. Doctors will typically run a few tests to diligently rule out any more serious underlying conditions. And then, once those more worrying possibilities are confidently crossed off the list, they basically give you a reassuring pat on the head and confirm you're not dying. While that news is undoubtedly a massive relief to hear, it doesn't do a whole lot to stop the sheer, unadulterated terror that grips you when the next random, unexpected chest stab makes you practically jump out of your skin. So yes, your body will just keep occasionally, and seemingly randomly stabbing you in the chest for no clearly discernible reason. And the collective wisdom of medical science has, for the most part, essentially shrugged its shoulders and advised, you'll just have to learn to deal with it. And if a sudden, phantom chest pain isn't quite enough to make you question the peculiar whims of your own body, how about when your throat decides to engage in its own form of bewildering trickery? Have you ever been plagued by that incredibly annoying, oddly persistent, and frankly distracting feeling that there's something stubbornly stuck in your throat? It's a sensation very much like a pill you've swallowed has, for some inexplicable reason, decided to halt its journey and take up unwelcome residence midway down your esophagus, refusing to budge no matter how many times you swallow hard, gulp down water, or try to discreetly clear your throat. You can almost physically feel it sitting there, a constant irritating presence, almost as if it's taunting you with its immovability. Except, and here's the truly bewildering twist in this physiological tale, there's absolutely nothing actually physically there. Welcome then to the curious and often frustrating world of globus sensation, which is essentially your throat's peculiar and highly effective way of gaslighting you into believing there's a genuine blockage when, in reality, your passageway is as clear as a summer sky. Your brain, bless its diligent heart, is practically screaming obstruction alert, sending out urgent signals like a miscalibrated alarm system, while highly trained doctors peer down your throat with their specialized instruments, meticulously examining every nook, cranny, and fold, only to find absolutely zilch. Nothing. Nada. Not a stray crumb. Not a rogue pill. Nothing at all. It's almost as if your throat has inexplicably developed a kind of phantom limb syndrome, but instead of a missing limb, it's for a piece of food or a pill that either never truly existed in the first place or has long since completed its digestive journey. Scientists naturally have spent a good deal of time pondering why on earth your body would decide to play such a perplexing and uncomfortable prank on you. They've managed to come up with several plausible theories to explain this oddity. Sometimes it's believed that the sensation is stress, quite literally manifesting itself as that choked up feeling we often describe when anxious. The muscles in your throat, particularly those situated around your voice box, larynx, can clench up so intensely and involuntarily that they create this very real and convincing sensation of a fake lump. Alternatively, it might be a subtle, perhaps unnoticed, case of acid reflux, where small amounts of stomach acid escape upwards and irritate the delicate lining of your esophagus and throat. This irritation can then trick your nerves into mistakenly thinking there's an emergency obstruction present when, in fact, there isn't. It could even be something as seemingly innocuous as minor, often unconscious, tension in the muscles of your neck that your brain completely misinterprets and then translates into this frustrating and persistent feeling of a lump. The most infuriating part of dealing with globus sensation is often the conspicuous lack of a straightforward, one-size-fits-all solution. There's no magic pill you can take to make it instantly vanish, primarily because doctors can't exactly remove something that isn't actually physically present to begin with. They might suggest trying out various relaxation techniques if stress is identified as the likely culprit, or they might prescribe antacids if they suspect that acid reflux is playing a significant role in triggering the sensation. But for a great many people who experience it, globus sensation is just this bizarre, inexplicable, and often transient glitch in your body's intricate internal feedback system. A glitch that inconveniently comes and goes whenever it darn well pleases, without rhyme or reason. Doctors can certainly help to manage the symptoms, rule out any more serious underlying causes, and offer reassurance, but they can't truly fix something that remains so fundamentally vague and phantom-like in its nature. Your throat, it seems, has simply decided to become a bit of a drama queen, and unfortunately, there's often not a whole lot anyone can do about its rather theatrical and uninvited performances. Speaking of things that feel intensely weird and are definitely not what they seem, let's talk about that universally recognized yet utterly misnamed sensation that occurs when you bang your elbow just right against a hard surface. We've all experienced it. You're moving around, perhaps gesticulating a bit too enthusiastically while telling a story, or maybe just clumsily navigating a tight space between furniture, and then, Wham! Instantly, a bizarre, unforgettable, electrifying shockwave shoots down your arm like a rogue current, zinging its way with unerring accuracy straight into your pinky and ring finger. It's a sensation quite unlike any other type of pain. It's not painful in the dull, throbbing way a normal bump or bruise is, but rather it's this intensely awful, almost unbearable tingling, a pins and needles feeling amplified to an excruciating degree. That makes you want to shake your arm like a madman, as if you're desperately trying to dislodge the feeling or somehow reset the wiring. Everyone colloquially calls this very specific spot on your elbow your funny bone. But here's the crucial thing. It's not a bone at all, and the sensation it produces when struck is decidedly, unequivocally not funny. What you're actually smacking with such unfortunate and painful precision is your ulnar nerve. This crucial nerve is a long, intricate communication pathway originating from the complex network of nerves in your neck, the brachial plexus, and traveling all the way down the length of your arm to your hand, where it's responsible for controlling sensation and movement in parts of your hand and forearm, particularly the little finger and part of the ring finger. For the vast majority of this extensive journey, the ulnar nerve is quite safely tucked away, well protected behind substantial layers of muscle and bone, almost as if it's encased in natural biological body armor. However, at the tricky point of your elbow, it takes a rather exposed and vulnerable route. It passes through a narrow channel formed by bone and ligaments, known as the cubital tunnel, and in this specific location, it sits very close to the surface in a little groove right under your skin with virtually zero protective padding or cushioning. It's anatomically akin to having an uninsulated, exposed electrical wire dangling precariously off the side of your house, just sitting there, vulnerable and waiting for an accidental impact. When you inevitably whack that specific sensitive spot, you're essentially crushing or compressing the ulnar nerve directly against the underlying bone, the medial epicondyle of the humerus to be precise. The nerve, understandably, completely freaks out from this sudden and unwelcome compression and fires off a chaotic, disorganized barrage of confused, jumbled electrical signals up to your brain. Your brain, in turn, struggles valiantly to interpret this neural mayhem and ultimately translates it into that uniquely horrible, unforgettable pins and needles meets lightning bolt sensation. It's frankly, when you think about it, a pretty significant design flaw in the otherwise remarkable human body. Why on earth would evolution, in its supposedly infinite wisdom, position such a sensitive and important nerve in one of the most bump-prone, easily impacted and vulnerable spots on your entire body? Scientists, despite their extensive and profound knowledge of human anatomy and physiology, have no definitive, universally agreed upon clue. And here's the real kicker, the part that adds insult to injury. There's no real fix for this inherent anatomical vulnerability. You can't just pop into a clinic and get funny bone armor installed, nor can you easily or safely reroute the nerve to a more protected location. Your only truly practical option is to simply try your very best not to hit it. A noble and sensible goal, but let's be perfectly honest with ourselves, you're almost definitely going to hit it again at some point in your life. But bodily quirks and glitches aren't always about sudden pain or strange, fleeting sensations. Sometimes they're about fundamental aspects of who we are as human beings, things we often take for granted as just the way things are, yet which science still can't fully and comprehensively explain. Consider, for instance, this simple everyday fact. About 9 out of every 10 people on this entire planet are right-handed. This overwhelming statistical majority preference for using the right hand for tasks like writing, eating, throwing a ball, and countless other daily activities is a well-established and consistent human trait observed across cultures and throughout history. But here's the truly weird part, the question that has puzzled and intrigued scientists, anthropologists, and neurologists for generations. Nobody knows why this is the case. Think about it seriously for a moment. From a purely logical, symmetrical, or even evolutionary efficiency standpoint, why isn't handedness a perfect 50-50 split between righties and lefties? That would seem, on the surface, to be a more balanced distribution. Even more curiously, why aren't we all born as ambidextrous superstars, equally adept and skilled at writing complex sentences with both hands, perhaps while simultaneously juggling flaming torches or performing intricate, delicate tasks with either limb with no discernible difference in proficiency? Instead, humanity as a species is stuck with this decidedly lopsided, remarkably consistent, asymmetrical glitch, a fundamental aspect of our being that scientists, for all their advanced tools and knowledge, still can't definitively crack or fully elucidate. Your brain, in its mysterious and complex early developmental stages, long before you could even grasp a crayon, utter a word, or understand the very concept of preference, somehow decided which hand would be your dominant one. And once your brain, through processes we still don't entirely comprehend, picked a side, that was pretty much it. You're essentially locked into that preference for the rest of your life. If you don't quite believe how deeply ingrained and automatic this is, try a little experiment right now, wherever you are. Attempt to write your name legibly, or even just a simple sentence, with your non-dominant hand. Go ahead, I'll wait. It probably feels incredibly awkward, like you're trying to perform delicate brain surgery while wearing bulky, unwieldy oven mitts, doesn't it? The fine motor coordination is likely way off, the letters might be shaky and malformed, and the whole process probably feels frustratingly slow and clumsy. The really perplexing and fascinating part of this enduring puzzle is that even identical twins who share the exact same DNA, the very same genetic blueprint, don't always have the same handedness. One twin might be right-handed while the other is a lefty. This crucial observation strongly suggests that genetics, while almost certainly playing a significant role in the predisposition towards a certain handedness, isn't the whole, complete story. So, if it's not purely genetics, what else could it be? Perhaps it was the specific and complex hormonal environment present in the womb during critical periods of fetal brain development. Maybe it was subtly influenced by how you were positioned as a fetus inside your mother. Or perhaps, in a seemingly arbitrary and almost random process, your brain just flipped a very heavily biased coin very early on in its development. Scientists have been diligently and meticulously studying this phenomenon for decades, exploring genetic markers, patterns of brain lateralization, the specialization of the brain's hemispheres, and various developmental factors. Yet they still don't have a single, conclusive, universally accepted answer. You're simply stuck being a righty or a lefty, or one of the very rare, truly ambidextrous few for your entire life. And as of now, nobody can tell you with absolute certainty exactly why you ended up that way. Welcome to the fascinating reality of being human, where even something as seemingly basic and fundamental as which hand you prefer to use for everyday tasks remains an unsolved, intriguing, and ongoing mystery. And if you thought the enduring mystery of something as common as handedness was strange, just imagine for a moment if your very perception of the world, the way you see everything around you, was permanently altered by a persistent and inexplicable glitch in your brain's visual processing system. Picture this scenario. You wake up one morning, you open your eyes, and your entire field of vision, everything you look at, appears as if you're viewing it through an old, untuned analog television screen. Tiny, countless flickering dots, like a fine shimmering layer of electronic static, dance incessantly and ceaselessly across every single thing you see. Your morning cup of coffee, with its rich aroma and dark color, is overlaid with this visual noise. The familiar face of a loved one, the intricate details of their expression, are subtly obscured by the shimmering dots. The vibrant, breathtaking colors of a glorious sunset are all covered in this persistent, inescapable static. You might try closing your eyes, desperately hoping for a moment of reprieve, a return to visual clarity, but the snow is still there, a faint, swirling, dynamic pattern visible even behind your closed eyelids. You decide to turn on the lights, thinking perhaps it's just a trick of the dimness, an illusion created by low light. But no, it's still snowing. The visual interference remains. This isn't some incredibly rare or obscure eye disease that affects only a tiny handful of people around the globe. In fact, in many cases, The eyes themselves are found to be perfectly healthy and functioning correctly upon thorough ophthalmological examination. The glitch, the source of this constant pervasive visual interference, is happening much deeper within the incredibly complex and sophisticated processing centers of your brain. Scientists who study this condition, now known as visual snow syndrome, theorize that the brain's visual processing unit, the intricate and highly specialized neural network responsible for receiving, interpreting, and making sense of the signals sent from your eyes, has somehow developed a kind of permanent, low-level interference. It's almost as if someone is constantly messing with the signal, introducing pervasive noise or static into the visual feed before it even reaches your conscious perception and awareness. And often, unfortunately, it gets worse than just the persistent static. Individuals living with visual snow syndrome might also experience other troubling visual disturbances, such as intense, unusually bright, and lingering after images when they look away from bright objects. Moving cars or other objects in motion might appear to leave ghostly trails or streaks behind them, as if they're moving in slow motion or leaving luminous traces of their path. Regular everyday lighting, which most people find perfectly comfortable, can feel overwhelmingly bright and glaring, almost like staring directly into the sun, leading to significant light sensitivity, photophobia. Here's the truly challenging and often frustrating part of this condition. While doctors and researchers are now much better at diagnosing visual snow syndrome, it was often dismissed or misdiagnosed in the past. They currently can't fix it. Brain scans, such as fMRI of individuals with visual snow, often show that specific areas of their visual cortex are firing differently, often more erratically or with increased activity compared to people who do not have the condition. However, despite these insights, there's no magic pill available to make the snow stop, no surgical procedure that can clear the vision and restore a static-free view of the world. Those who experience it just get to live with a permanent, unwelcome, and often distracting filter overlaid on their entire reality. Perhaps one of the most startling and poignant aspects of this condition is that some people live with it for many years, sometimes even well into adulthood, without ever realizing that their perception of the world isn't normal. They simply assume that everyone sees the world through this same veil of shimmering static. Imagine the profound, disorienting realization, perhaps at the age of 25 or 30, that most people don't have a constant dynamic shimmering light show playing in their vision 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, the next time your Wi-Fi glitches out for a moment and your computer or television screen turns fuzzy and indistinct, just take a moment to remember that for some people, their brain is, in a very real sense, permanently stuck on that fuzzy, static-filled channel. Finally, let's delve into a truly bizarre and rather exclusive ability that some people possess. A kind of internal, almost secret superpower that they might not even realize is unique or unusual. Here's a peculiar question for you, and I want you to genuinely try this. Can you right now, at this very moment, voluntarily make a sound that resembles thunder but deep inside your own head? I'm not talking about the dull, throbbing pain that often accompanies a nasty headache or the ringing of tinnitus, but an actual, tangible, audible rumbling or rushing sound that only you can hear originating from within. Give it a try. Close your eyes, relax your jaw and shoulders, and really focus your attention on the space kind of behind and inside your ears in the middle ear area. See if you can consciously will into existence a sound akin to distant rolling thunder, or perhaps the distinct sound of strong wind rushing powerfully through the leaves of trees, or even a sensation that feels and sounds like a contented cat purring directly against your eardrum. If you just manage to make that happen, if you successfully summon that internal, self-generated noise on command, then congratulations are in order. You are, in a very real and fascinating way, basically a mutant, possessing a rather uncommon and somewhat bizarre physiological ability. What you're actually doing when you create that sound is voluntarily contracting a tiny, almost insignificant looking little muscle called the tensor tympani. This minuscule muscle is cleverly hidden away deep within your middle ear, and its usual day-to-day involuntary job is to act like an automatic volume control system for your hearing. When very loud, potentially damaging noises suddenly hit your ears, or even when you're doing something as mundane as chewing your food vigorously or letting out a wide yawn, this tensor tympani muscle automatically and reflexively tenses up. This tensing action pulls on your eardrum, the tympanic membrane, making it more rigid and less able to vibrate. This, in turn, helps to dampen the intensity of the sound vibrations reaching your delicate inner ear structures, thereby protecting your hearing from potential harm from the loud sounds. But for some reason that still eludes a full scientific explanation, a select group of people, yourself perhaps included if you just rumbled, can consciously flex this muscle whenever they want, deliberately and at will. It's somewhat analogous to being able to wiggle your ears, another quirky motor control some possess. Except this particular action is happening deep inside your skull and produces a distinct, often quite noticeable sound that only you, the rumbler, can perceive, frequently described as a miniature thunderstorm, a deep rumble, or a rushing wind. Here's the truly fascinating and somewhat frustrating thing for scientists. They have absolutely no definitive clue why some people can actively control this muscle and produce this sound, while the vast majority of others cannot. What possible evolutionary advantage could voluntary ear rumbling possibly confer upon an individual? It's hard to imagine. Did our ancient cave-dwelling ancestors perhaps use this ability to try and intimidate saber-toothed tigers with menacing, internally generated thunder sounds? It seems highly improbable, to say the least. Most people who discover, often by accident in childhood, that they possess this quirky ability initially just assume that everyone else can do it too. It feels so natural to them. Then, at some point, they might casually mention it to friends or family members. "Can't you make that thunder sound in your ears?" Only to be met with blank stares, looks of utter bewilderment, or perhaps even polite skepticism, as if they've just claimed they can taste colors or communicate with squirrels. Scientists understand the anatomy and the reflexive function of the tensor tympani muscle perfectly well. They just can't comprehensively explain why your brain, or the brains of a select rumbly few, decided to grant you manual, conscious override control over it. It's not a broken system, it's not a pathology, so there's nothing to fix. You're just walking around with a fascinating, built-in personal white noise machine that, as far as we currently know, serves absolutely no discernible practical purpose. You're not necessarily special in a world-saving superhero sense. You're just wonderfully, inexplicably, and rather uniquely glitched.